Look, we're looking at a Senate primary today, you guys. This is a Republican primary to take on Michael Bennet in the Colorado Senate seat here. You know, as we're looking at the map here across the country, we're looking at a reality that Democrats are trying to defend a great number of Democratic-held seats. Colorado is one that we start to look at as a blue state, but that has not kept Democrats and Democratic-aligned forces from wading into this primary here. I want to let you just watch one campaign commercial here, because there's two gentlemen that are running for the Republican primary for the U.S. Senate. You have Joe O'Dea, who is a CEO of a construction company, somebody who has suggested that the federal government should codify limited abortion rights. And then on the other side, you have Ron Hanks, who is a state lawmaker who was outside of the Capitol on January 6th, and he's put up a campaign ad in which he is shooting up a mock Dominion voting machine. Those are the two men that are going at it. Well, Democrats have come in and put millions of money to lift up the candidacy of Ron Hanks, that election denier, and to knock down Joe O'Dea. Take a look at one of those campaign commercials.
Politician Joe O'Dea is not who he says he is. O'Dea says he wants to rein in government spending, but he supports Biden's $1.2 trillion spending bill. And before running for Senate as a Republican, O'Dea actually supported Democrats and even gave money to Michael Bennet. O'Dea also donated to John Hickenlooper, even after he signed new gun safety measures into law. No way, O'Dea. Colorado deserves a straight shooter.
Now to that election denier candidate, Ron Hanks, he's raised just over $30,000 for the entirety of the Senate campaign, but now it's those millions of dollars that have lifted him up and tried to take down John O'Dea. Take a look at when I asked John O'Dea yesterday what he thought of the Democrats wading into this race.
It seems a little ridiculous to me that they're in the middle of our primary trying to make sure I'm not on the ballot. I'm a little humbled by it, though it's fantastic to figure out that I'm threatening Michael Bennet right now. I'm going to run against the Democrats twice. Run against them here in the primary. They financed a campaign for a person that can't get elected here in Colorado, thinking they can knock me off the ticket. Ain't going to happen.
But you're also seeing that Democrats are putting millions of dollars behind election-denying Republican candidate for governor here in Colorado, as well as an election-denying gubernatorial candidate and a Trump-backed candidate, Darren Bailey, in Illinois.
The conspiracies start to get twisted in your mind when you're using a gun to shoot the Dominion voting machine that you said was controlled by an Italian satellite. Something, who knows? NBC's Vaughn Hilliard in Colorado for us this morning. Vaughn, thanks so much. Let's turn now to the big board. That's where we find, of course, NBC News national political correspondent Steve Kornacki. Steve, good morning. What are you looking at today?
Yeah, well, Vaughn set it up there. I think, look, the marquee race today is this Republican primary here in Colorado, where you got Ron Hanks kind of playing that outsider role, running against Joe O'Dea. This is one of those races. Look, Colorado has trended very blue over the last 10, 15 years or so. But this is one of those races that Republicans think they could have a shot at this November if the kind of red wave they think is out there materializes. But key Republicans believe, at least nationally, to their hopes here is getting O'Dea through this primary. And Vaughn talked about how Democrats are really trying to prop up Hanks in this race. You got a really clear contrast here, for instance, on this question of abortion that has suddenly emerged in the wake of the Supreme Court ruling last week. O'Dea is running as a pro-choice candidate. He's saying that there are certain abortion protections he would like to codify into law. Hanks, on the other hand, as a state legislator in Colorado, actually backed a bill that would have outlawed abortion in all cases, no exceptions for rape, incest, danger to a mother's life. Now, interestingly here, you've got a backdrop here of what happened to get Michael Bennet in the Senate in the first place. The winner of this takes on Michael Bennet. If you go back to 2010, 12 years ago, big red wave Republican year, this is when Michael Bennet first got elected to the Senate from Colorado. Note how close the race was. Bennet defied the national trend that year toward the Republicans. Why? Because the opponent he drew in that election, Ken Buck, was seen as too out of step with where Colorado voters were, particularly on the topic of abortion. Buck had a similar a platform on abortion as you now see with Hanks. So that's why Democrats are spending, I think, so aggressively on behalf of propping up Hanks in this primary. That's how Bennett got elected in the first place. He drew a weaker opponent in the general election in 2010, and in what was overwhelmingly a Republican year in 2010, Michael Bennett got himself elected to the Senate barely. They think that's how he could survive this year, if they could knock Joe O'Dea out in this primary today. So that, I think, is the marquee race today. The other big theme of the day today in these primaries, we're going to see at least 2 House incumbents lose their seats today, and the number could actually go significantly higher. Let me take you through a few of them quickly. The 2 we know we're going to see, one incumbent's going to lose this race. In Illinois, they really blew up the map here in a big way. Here's 2 incumbents pitted against each other, Democrats in a primary. Sean Casten, Marie Newman. By the way, Newman, if there was a signature issue for her in her campaign in 2020 to get to the House, it was abortion. She defeated in a Democratic primary in 2020 one of the final remaining pro-life Democrats. That was Dan Lipinski. Newman now in a primary with Sean Casten. One of them will lose. One of them will be out of Congress. Also in Illinois, another merged district. This one, Republican. Mary Miller. Rodney Davis, Miller running with Trump's endorsement. Davis voted for the establishment of the January 6th Commission, voted to certify the 2020 election. Miller says those votes were stabbing Trump voters in the back. Interesting test here. This is very different political terrain for both of these candidates. But again, one incumbent is going to lose here. Also, Mississippi, unfinished business. They had their preliminary a few weeks ago. Here's the Republican primary in the 3rd district. Here's where things stood coming out of that. The incumbent actually trailing the challenger. Now, Cassidy Guest, they have a runoff tonight. Guest could lose his seat. Also in Mississippi, the incumbent Steve Palazzo in the 4th district held to barely 30% in the preliminary. He's in a runoff with Mike Ezell. He's a sheriff in southern Mississippi. Again, Palazzo could lose his seat. So we've got all sorts of Doug Lamborn in Colorado's 5th. We'll even be keeping an eye tonight on Lauren Boebert in the 3rd district. There have been a lot of Democrats registering as unaffiliated for a chance to vote in this Republican primary in Colorado. So there could be a number of incumbents in some trouble tonight.
All right. Steve Kornacki, thank you so much. We will see you again tomorrow. And